Thanks, Morales. Well, I mean, it's been a long day so far, right, guys? We've learned about a lot of different technology. I'm going to try to keep things very simple this evening. I actually don't like talking about technology, right? Technology isn't... I prefer to talk about outcomes and what it is that we really want, right? We didn't get into details about our flights to get here. We said we traveled from point A to point B for a conference. It's about the outcome, it's about the process and less about how we got from point A to B. So I'm going to take it up a couple layers, but we're going to have a nice little conversation today, guys. So feel free to ask questions during, stop me if I mention any terms that you don't understand, anything like that. And let's keep it engaging this evening. I've promised something a little different from our other presenters so far today, and hopefully we'll deliver on that. So guys, afternoon again. My name is Dmitri Dawkins. I'm the commercial director at MC Systems. We're a company based in Jamaica. We've been in existence for 52 years this year. 52, yeah, 52 years. We serve customers in 26 different countries across the globe. We have a team of 130 thereabouts, based in Jamaica and hybrid across the globe. We started out actually as a payroll company back in the 70s, the early 70s, and ended up transitioning to technology because of payroll. So we started saying, hey, how do we go from these very manual processes to integrating tech as tech became more affordable, and then went into enterprise software development as part of that transition, and then from enterprise software development into creating solutions for financial services. And even up to recently, when I say recently, like 2015, 2016, we were still one of the main players helping to integrate different systems for financial institutions across the Caribbean. And I think that when we really enter the big leagues is when we acquired our own core banking platform to offer across the Caribbean. We're the only Caribbean-based technology organization with their own core banking system. Our core banking system is called Phoenix International. Some of you might be familiar with it. It's used by a number of institutions regionally. Again, customers in the Caribbean, LATAM, continent of Africa, one in the UK, one in the US. And when we acquired this solution and started a modernization approach, we were trying to think of what are we going to do differently from everybody else? You know, there's so many different core banking solutions available. There's so many different technology providers. What is the core mission that we have? And our mission is to be the catalyst for financial inclusion and fintech adoption in emerging markets. Because technology right now is ubiquitous. You've seen all the presentations so far today. You have different systems that you use. What it comes down to is how we use it and our approach to using it. And if we do not have adoption, and if we don't help to reach that last customer, what are we really doing? And I'm pretty sure, I mean, all of you guys have your own missions for your organizations, but we find that this is most aligned to helping you as a financial services provider provide those solutions. So I'm going to, as I said, you know, take a little difference in approach today. We're going to go on a little bit of a journey, a relatively short conversation about financial services in the Caribbean, what has happened in the past, and how it is that we can work together, all of us, to improve this experience going forward. And I really love incorporating quotes in my presentation. So here's one by Walter Anderson: we're never so vulnerable than when we trust someone. But paradoxically, if we cannot trust, neither can we find love or joy. You're probably wondering, boy, Dimitri's gone off his rockers. What does this have to do with technology, right? The thing about financial services is that trust is everything with financial services. And right now, most of our customers trust us by default and not because they choose to trust us. So everybody has to have a bank account to get paid. You have to have certain services to live your life on a daily basis. But wouldn't we like our customers to be happy that they're customers of ours, right? Rather than it just being, oh, we don't really want to go to the bank today because that's just frustration. We don't want to have to call in to customer support because it's frustration. We don't want to have to change the way we log in. We don't want to change any at all. Why can't we just have our cash whenever we want, magically just show up under our pillow each morning based on what we need to do, right? So in the way that we approach business on a day-to-day basis, I like to switch from the fanciness of the digital channels and the aesthetics and the complex processes and bring it back to the core thing. When somebody is doing business with us, do they trust that it's going to happen as they expect? So the role, I think, for financial service providers is experience, inclusion, adoption, and efficiency. And again, going back in time, the Caribbean is still a relatively new market for many services, and we had some really big issues. Settler colonialism created financial exclusion to begin with. There was racism, there's classism, long-term social trust and disbelief, the operating risks of operating in the Caribbean on a whole, right? The economic risks, as all of our economies have gone through ups and downs of changing industries, what's leading, what's not, foreign exchange, et cetera, it's created a lot of issues. And this is why when you have, let me not even think about 3 generations back, but even 2 generations back, people did not trust the standard financial ecosystem because they thought, hey, we always need to have a backup. There needs to be a plan B, or even we're not going to have a primary financial services provider. We're going to split our money across 3 or 4 institutions in case one fails. And this sort of behavior is what trickles down over time as kids learn from their parents. People see, what happened in the news in the case of like Jamaica with our fintech era, and other islands have had similar issues of economic collapse, banking collapse, foreign exchange, volatility, all of these things. We have to understand where we're coming from if we're going to change our customers' approach and if we're going to change our mindset on how they utilize our services. So Jamaica's motto is out of many one people. But really and truly now, and I think it's more or less ubiquitous in the Caribbean, we have one economy supported by digital payments. Digital payments, the whole range, whether that be remittances, whether that be your regular credit and debit rails, even the individual going to a regular ATM and accessing their funds. These are all examples of digital payments, and it's used by the unbanked, the underbanked, as well as the highly banked. And I don't like to split them up as much. Yes, they have different levels of utility within the different financial services industry, but we have to think of everyone on a whole, because really and truly, especially those that are highly banked, we're already maximizing a lot of the value from that customer segment. What we don't realize, and what is largely untapped and unmapped in the Caribbean, is really that underbanked and unbanked. People are doing informal transactions, lending money to each other, doing even cross-border payments informally, all sorts of things that erodes value, especially for those of us in very small markets where, hey, we don't have a lot of business to do in the first place, but then that informal economy eats away at the margins even more. And it's also significantly risky, as we've all seen even with our AML monitoring and transaction monitoring, when we see things that are out of place and we know that it's most likely related to an illicit transaction. So again, looking at the customer psychology of things, if we increase our alignment of our services to our customers' value, then we'll drive adoption of our services, right? We have our cognitive factors such as the gravity of events, media coverage, risk mitigating measures. So the news is constantly pumping out bad news. That's the business model. And so it's always shock and awe. And then people become very conscious or aware that, maybe I should not use, I met somebody the other day that absolutely refuses to use their credit card online because they think that using their credit card online is what's going to lead to it being compromised. But no, in the meantime, they're literally hurting themselves economically by not benefiting from purchasing some items online. And so therefore it limits their own financial path going forward, right? You have the affective factors, emotions, feelings, moods. We've all been there, boy. I feel for something nice. Going to go buy some nice lunch today, get myself dessert, clear my Amazon cart, whatever it is, right? You have your contextual factors, the framing of risk information, availability of alternative information sources. That point of availability of alternative information sources is a critical one. I'm sure you guys have seen it online. There are a ton of, what they call themselves? Financial coaches on Instagram and TikTok, and everybody know that's running different programs and say, hey, we'll teach you how to save better, invest better, all of this information. Nobody's really validating them, but at the same time, they're a required part of the ecosystem, because when you send out an email and try to educate your customer, the customer thinks, oh no, you're just guiding them. Yeah, exactly, you're guiding them because you stand to benefit, when really and truly, there's just some general practices that they should be following, but because of mistrust, they believe that we need to hear it from a third party rather than from our preferred financial institution. And then you have the other individual factors, personality traits, previous experience, age, gender, right? So I know this is a very much an operating working group, user group here. Has anybody here ever designed products specifically within your institution or been part of that process? One. Anybody else? Two? Don't be shy, guys. All right, well, two people. But really and truly, I mean, I've seen this happen over and over in different institutions. Hardly ever are these factors taken into consideration when designing a brand new product. And so therefore, we launch a new product, we spend millions of dollars trying to launch a new product. We've invested so much money to incorporate these new products or digital channels or whatever else, and then they fail because the customer themselves don't find it valuable and they don't find it aligned to their daily lifestyle. They don't understand how it's going to benefit them overall. So the other challenge we face is consistency. A consistent experience builds trust. What do we see with a highly banked individual? A highly banked individual has multiple accounts at different institutions, multiple service providers for different things, because they have a certain level of expectation. But really and truly, those who are, let me say, less educated on financial products and services have no expectation, don't know what it's like. They go to one institution, they have a different set of KYC requirements than the next. They do one type of transaction, it's a different set of KYC requirements than the next. And so they feel that it's very disjointed and not consistent any at all. And so as an industry overall, I think that we need to work together in user groups like this, or you know, we have CAB, we have other industry associations. How is it that we can streamline customer experiences to ensure that when a customer says, hey, I need to open a bank account, they know that I need these 4 things and it's going to take me this amount of time, whether it be in-person, digital, sending in via email, whatever the onboarding experience is, it's a little more consistent so that way everyone has a managed expectation and they can continue to share this again within families, within their co-working groups, etc., to trust the industry some more. Because overall, I think banking is a utility. I don't think it's really been designated in the Caribbean. It's actually designated as a utility in the US. And if your payment systems start failing on any given day, it is going to wreak more havoc than the power being out, than water being out, than anything else, right? The minute transactions stop for any reason or have a hiccup, then everything economically fails. Every single thing. So, as an industry, what we've already achieved, most people I think agree that point of sale payments are easier than cash, and I'm talking about retail consumers, right? Until the point of sale isn't working. Somebody had highlighted earlier, I think it was a KFC line, and they will announce, hey, the card machine isn't working, and suddenly half of everybody walks away, right? Cash is available everywhere because we have ATMs all over until the ATM is out of service. So paydays, You know, payday Friday, good luck. Everybody's gone to an ATM, everybody's pulling money, right? It's not that the ATM isn't working, you're just out of cash. More loans are issued now than ever before, unless you don't qualify. There's so many loans being issued privately between individuals because people think that they don't qualify for a loan. Their perception is that they can't get it. I've spoken to taxi drivers right here in Jamaica who say, oh no, I have to save up enough money to buy a car cash because I will never get a car loan. And then you ask them, have you ever tried to apply for a car loan as a taxi driver? No, never. But the assumption is that they won't qualify because they don't have enough money. When these guys are breaking in $500 a day or more and would more than qualify for those car payments. I mean, the mere fact that they can actually save for a brand new car in 2 or 3 years just shows how well qualified they are to access that product in the first place, right? So when trust dies, mistrust blossoms. And no matter what is happening, no matter what our messaging is, anything that goes wrong, any negative newspaper article, any instance of somebody getting their card skimmed, any failed transaction because their international payment didn't go through or something like that, every single one of those stories gets spread way faster than a positive story. And this just continues to breed mistrust within the industry, within our customer segment. And again, it hurts us all because when somebody's hurt on one side, it's not that everyone's come and switch over to your services. So your competition losing business doesn't mean you're going to gain business. It's just the industry overall is just going to lose that business on a whole. And this is especially a problem when we have say international service providers like a PayPal or others who are operating outside of our jurisdiction, but our clients can easily access these services and they don't have the overheads that we have to face, especially from a regulatory and compliance perspective. So our firm belief at MC Systems, I mean, we've been long-time innovators. We've created many solutions as being the first in the Caribbean. MC Systems is like the best kept secret in the Caribbean. But for example, like Digicel, when they started their top-up solution, when Digicel first started back in, what was that, 01, 02, we created that voucher-based top-up system. So point-of-sale machines in the Caribbean, I think we've sold 75% of them overall. If you've used a Verifone terminal in the Caribbean, it's MC Systems. But we adopted the software on that so that way we could do the voucher top-ups from those same machines and allow it to expand. And that was very, very beneficial to digital. And it's now ubiquitous across the industry. But innovation is not it. Like innovation can't be, it's not what's new, it's not what's latest. It's about how do we use it. If we don't adopt the technology successfully, then we're not going to get the value. Quick show of hands, how many people have implemented something new recently? Or not even recently, at some point, and it never moves past that phase one of the project. Like you got your MVP and just stopped. Or it took much longer to implement the other features. I see a lot of nodding heads, but not many hands. I know you guys see it though, right? If we don't adopt fully, sure we can reach that 80%, but that last 20% is where you're going to get the significant value, right? That's really what we have to push towards to make sure that we transform the experience. And I mean, creating meaningful change for customers, 70% of Jamaicans are still underbanked. We, again, need more data for the broader Caribbean as well, but we need to provide access to products which improve daily convenience. It can't be a thing of once per year or however often, the one mortgage you get every 20 years, something like that. How do we ensure our customers use our products daily? How do we create opportunities for wealth building? How do we protect our customers from the bad actors? And how do we educate customers, again, directly or sponsoring other content creators that will help to educate our customer base? And again, we know the industry challenges. International settlements with correspondent banking is still a major challenge for us as a region. The local and international regulations, sanction lists, etc. And then still national and economic security. My number one benefit of trying to convince merchants to switch from cash and utilize more digital payments is just security. You know, I was sharing during lunch earlier, the Western Union near my grandmother's house in St. Elizabeth gets robbed every 6 months, right? Those guys wait, they see the truck pull up, they know that it's offloading cash, they run in there with their guns and masks and rob them every 6 months. And it's absolutely terrible, right? Because can you imagine, you need to receive a remittance payment, and you're standing in line, and you know, heaven forbid, you become injured, or just the trauma of being in that situation overall, right? So the national economic security really is a big problem, and a large part of that is cash. So our missions overall, again, everybody has their own, but I think it all falls under the core theme of how do we enable or support our economic development. This is what we do. By helping our clients build wealth, by having best practices, etc., we're going to be building better economies and better societies on a whole. And I mean, again, coming back to consistency in the industry, we have our KYC and other compliance hurdles. Some of us are a little more on the extreme end and require more than the regulators have asked us for, but it is risky, right? Some, yes, I won't call any names. We still have the fact that cash is still very convenient. It's accepted everywhere, but digital payments aren't. And the other fact that very few customers still access the benefits of inclusion. Yes, you might see your peers at the same supermarkets or restaurants, etc., but really and truly, there are a lot of people who do not have that experience on a day-to-day basis. And so we need to show them why being a part of the ecosystem, again, is going to improve their convenience on a daily basis. So it's not just about the external customers either. Internally, I mean, okay guys, let me really be frank here. How many of us have been frustrated at least, I'm going to say at least 2 times per month with your day-to-day job? All right. We're getting somewhere now, right? So, because, you know, again, so in our organizations, everything is customer first. We are all internal customers at our own organizations. We help each other. People make requests of us. We satisfy those requests. We collaborate, all these other things, right? So we need to, I had one of our customers called about a month ago, and they were having some issue. They logged their ticket, etc. And we told them, and they had existing functionality that solved that problem. And they said that they had been internally trying to fight with this for 3 months. I was like, well, guys, I wish you told us sooner. We, number one, could have helped you sooner, but this was a team that was second generation of training, so they didn't get trained by us directly. They got trained by their predecessors, and they didn't have a full understanding of the capacities of the system that they use on a daily basis. We have to improve capacity and education within our team so that everyone has a level playing field in order to contribute to the team, right? Human-centered design, using empathy and experience to design workflows. Anybody here familiar with human-centered design on a whole? One person, two? All right, so let me explain it quickly. When we design new processes internally, we say, okay, we have a problem and we need to get to a solution, and there are steps along. And normally those steps are based on steps to address or fix that problem. But hardly ever are those steps, does it consider the person executing the steps? Will this person become frustrated? Will they have decision fatigue? Will it require heavy amounts of focus for extended periods? Is it mundane and boring? Is it just different elements for the person actually executing the steps. And so this is why we all end up frustrated in our jobs on a day-to-day basis, because the process of executing our job is not aligned with our core values, or may frustrate us based on our own personality or the way that we operate, etc. Some people might like asynchronous communication, or send me an email, send me a message, and I'll get it done in a prioritized order. Other people like, hey, make sure you call me on the phone right now and let me know that this is done. The communication styles, a range of different things, and we have to adjust these things for different teams, different processes, and think of the people trying to execute. I was it was CAB last year. I think it was CAB last year, and there was a financial institution that was there that could not get any new tellers for their organization, any at all, right? And that's just because all the new Gen Z kids don't want to be a teller. They don't want to stand up all day long. They refuse to do that work for that amount of money, and they had ridiculously high staff turnover for that element. What they did is that they actually took some of their more senior staff to work on the front line, and then gave the new guys like some very heavy training and other jobs to do, which they actually enjoyed. They didn't mind sitting in a back room and staring at a screen for 8 hours all day, as long as they didn't have to deal with people, which was, I found it very surprising. But they found a way to adjust their team dynamic based on the people that were working for them, or the talent available, right? Collaboration, duplicated effort increases costs, and the lack of collaboration actually increases friction and competition. I actually think that we need to do a lot more working together as an industry, so that way we can reduce the cost. So many of us have the same roles or same services in our individual organizations. And let me talk about regulatory and compliance costs by itself. If we were to share some of these services outright, I'm pretty sure it would save us a lot of money overall as institutions. And we need to consider these things outright. How do we merge some of our departments and create shared service companies to reduce our total cost of service for our customers, which is going to make us more sustainable, right? Automation, again, eliminating repetitive tasks. Nobody wants to come in and do the same thing every single day for 25 years. How can we automate this as best as possible to leave people are typically creative. I mean, at some point we went from playing with crayons in K2 to suddenly being the most boring bankers in 2024, right? How do we re-spark that creativity? How do we make our jobs a little more dynamic? So when you wake up in the morning, you're like, oh geez, not this again. It's like, wait, hold on, I wonder what new experiences is going to be today. I mean, it sounds far-fetched, but actually it's not. It's something that we can do, especially with all the fancy AI tools, etc., and the way we change our workflows and processes. So again, how can we invest regionally and scale globally? I have a personal issue with the fact that when we hear about big investment, it's always some foreign firm coming in and investing, and we're going to create more value in the Caribbean. Why is it that we don't have more regional institutions scaling and then going overseas, right? I mean, in JN Group, we had JN Bank a couple of years, 4 years ago, expand and create a bank in the UK. But why don't we see more things like that overall? How is it that as an ecosystem that's facing our own challenges, that we understand culturally what these our customers want? Why not apply that same cultural expertise now to similar Commonwealth economies across the globe? And I really think that starts with the technology aspect. Again, that's why MC Systems, we bought a core banking system. We said, hey, we're tired of working with all these institutions that have all these external service providers that pay hundreds of thousands of US dollars every year, and they don't get the value because typically the Caribbean is like a token sale, right? Somebody comes around once every other year, they chat you up, you spent a lot of money with them, you don't hear from them for 6 months, right? So what other markets can we create solutions for, given the fact that we already have a certain level of economy of scale locally? And that's what we've been doing at MC Systems. We're also breaking our dependence on imported IP to better meet customer needs. Again, culturally, the solutions and workflows created for, say, North America, for Europe, for even other emerging markets like the stuff that we get out of Asia is not necessarily well suited for the Caribbean, and that's why we spend so much money on customizations. And that is a huge issue when it comes down to the adoption of technology, because that total cost, when we have a relatively small customer base, is dreadful. Dreadful. That's why we can't get our stuff approved. You know, we create all these new strategies each year and send it off for board approval, and we get what, 25% of it, right? Because of the high cost. Again, we're focused on being the catalyst for financial inclusion and adoption for emerging markets. And even though we are based in the Caribbean, we're still hiring the best talent globally. I have team members from Costa Rica over to Dubai. Half of our team, well, for Phoenix, is in Jamaica, but the other half is all across the globe. And that's because talent is really where you win. Just because we're operating and serving people in the Caribbean doesn't mean that you have to have all of your talent in the Caribbean. We're going to find the best people wherever they are and make sure that they fix our problems here in the Caribbean. So we're all world class. All of us could migrate, get jobs at other places, get paid way more money. But you know what's happened? You know, we're based here in the Caribbean. We have a relatively good quality of life, I think, which is why we stay in the Caribbean. And I think that rather than people saying, oh, yeah, but that's, you know, one of the small EC banks, yeah, no. We're a world-class institution. We're using the best-in-class technology. We can create best-in-class experiences, and it's time to show the globe. Our general approach to supporting change in organizations is to avoid budget overruns, misaligned effort, duplicated effort, slow execution, yada yada. Basically, we don't try to take on too much. I don't want to see an approach where, hey, we're going to do these 20 things. No. What are the 2 things that are going to give you the most value right now? And let's start with that. It doesn't mean that you have to change your core banking system to begin with, anything else. Actually, our usual approach is to say, hey, how can we improve your customer experience first? Because customer experience is what's going to drive your revenues. So if we just add on expenses, you have a really low or negative ROI to begin with. Whereas if we change your customer experience first and it drives new experiences with those customers, then at least you can start receiving some benefits, and the cash flow from that can then pay for the later phases of implementation. Our specific approach, you know, we do a lot of financial analysis on our customers first to figure out what would help and what really would make a difference from a P&L point of view. And then based on that, we say, okay, let's work on your customer origination or your lending operations or remittances or ATMs, POS, wallets, whatever it is. But it's not just, I mean, we've over the years expanded quite a bit into a wide range of business lines. But the key thing is that we're here to be bespoke partners and to work with you directly. And you tell us what's keeping you up at night, and then we help you to sleep better at night afterwards. Right? We do plenty of collaboration. I absolutely loved all the presentations shared today. We're open to collaboration. We have quite a number of partners and willing to add on more. And it's just really, at the end of the day, just making sure, as I said, we have that unified industry experience going forward and how we can support that in whichever way. How many people here have more than 10 people in their IT team? Okay, so 10% of the room, right? And that's what we see in the Caribbean overall. So many people want to do great things, but they just don't have the capacity internally to execute or implement those projects. And then when you talk to people about implementing them, it's ridiculously expensive. So we come in to say, hey, we'll work with you, we will execute on your behalf, guide you, give you the reports, everything, and that way you can see the benefits going forward. Just some quick things. I'm not going into this, but some really high-level revenue opportunities that I'd like to see us pursue in the Caribbean. Open banking, it's not a if, but when the regulators are going to force us to adopt open banking regulations, and there's quite a bit of revenue that can be generated by implementing it sooner and even supporting other like fintechs that you think might be competitors. Really and truly, if you onboard and you basically lease your regulatory stack to those fintechs, you can start profiting from them while they do all of the burn, the expensive burn on the new customer experiences, right? Embedded finance, supporting financial transactions in non-financial channels. Just imagine a retailer, they want to offer financing on their products or buy now, pay later, other things like that. They're not in the business of lending, but you can be that back end that is managing that lending approach. And then of course, banking as a service. This is again coming from you as a financial service provider where you can, through your API, provide banking services to fintechs, third parties, etc., and you just do all the calculations on the back end. Again, leveraging your technology stack in ways that you couldn't before because it's not your customer, but you are, from a regulatory and operations point of view, managing those experiences. And yeah, that's it for me today, guys. Still have some time? All right, we'll open the floor for questions. Sure. I think, oh. And then as well, I'm open to booking any sessions with the partner meetings later.
Yes, good afternoon to all. I'm standing for that one. The thing about it, sometimes you see that, like you said, the failing of projects and those things. Sometimes we as managers and those staff, we do not have, we have zero input of what has to be implemented. But driven, and you do it.
Right.
Frontline, I work at a commercial company, you will say it will not work. The same like you say, you do your primary, you do all your assessment for clients first before you develop. They don't work together. They believe they have it all. So sometimes it's really at the top, and a lot of them don't understand project management. And it fails, although a board member is supposed to be having a whole spectrum of different mindset. But we have to be the slave masters to get driving customers complaining, they're hitting at you, and we have to make them feel happy. Now that's why sometimes you mention sometimes you live here and go internationally because you believe your worth is not being recognized in the Caribbean.
Right.
So that's really a comment I didn't want to go too much of the IT, but from the people's side of things to implement, because we implemented it that we have to serve our customer. So, and it's not too much of the technology that wowing the customers, is we as the people using the technology. And that's what it is. That's my take.
Definitely. Thanks for that.
Any other questions, comments for engagement?
Lois has one.
Good afternoon again. I heard the word used more than one time in the meeting, and so I just, for my benefit, I just want to ask, what do you mean by this stack? Can you just break it out a little bit? I think I understand, but what I want to know is, I hear you talk about your regulatory stack, your framework, and I think I know what you mean, but I just want to be, I think maybe other people can benefit. What do you mean, and how can we bring it down to us in a manner that we can actually sell it to our bosses, or maybe to ourselves in the future? What do you mean? Are you talking about our information, our infrastructure, knowledge, skill set?
Yeah, so I mean, stack generally is just a combination of different workflows, processes, platforms, tools to execute a specific job, let's say. So that could be, you could have a people stack, you could have a technology stack. And when I mention like regulatory stack, that would be all the platforms or tools used to execute your regulatory monitoring and compliance. Your AML stack would be, again, all of the tools to handle all of your anti-money laundering, monitoring, compliance, reporting, escalations, etc. So yeah, the stack is just everything that's required to execute a specific process. Let me give you an example of how to, say, use a stack. I was having a conversation with, what's the name? Well, I can't name the company. I was having a conversation with a digital rights management company. And so they manage different producers, soca artists, writers, etc., and upload their stuff to Spotify. And Spotify pays them on their behalf. So they will have a couple thousand people that they're managing the rights for. So every time you listen to the music on Spotify users here? Yeah. Every time you listen to their music, the 1 cent or how much ever that's supposed to be generated is all accumulated, right? So we're having a conversation on the basis that they found it difficult that, hey, an artist in an island somewhere might have $300 due for them in payments, but because the Swift payment costs $45 or $50, it's not economical for them to take that payment this month, even though they would like to have their $300. Right? They would lose more than 10% of their money off the payments alone. So what we're discussing, and feel free anybody to use this idea, is for a local institution to be a middleman so that way we can do one payment to that institution, and that institution can locally distribute to the same customers, which allows you, number one, to bring on a whole set of new customers, number two, have a steady source of foreign exchange, and number three, just generally increase your volume of payments processed, which should help your unit economics of the institution. So that would be leveraging your payment stack in order to support a fintech application.
I just want to say, from what I'm hearing a little bit, especially in school, is what are the risks associated, for example, if any, or if you can think of, with dealing with a fintech company and maybe your AML stack?
Right.
Is there a risk that's similar to maybe a downstream relationship? What are the types of risks that you see or that are usually associated with such alliances?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in the past, you used to say have a fintech that partners with a commercial bank or entity and say they're just using you as a settlement bank account, and you have no transparency on what sorts of transactions, where the money is coming from, where the money is going. You don't know what the core activities. And this is really and truly what happens with the majority of our commercial customers. You know money comes into the account, but you don't really know the details behind that operations, and you have to trust the audited financials afterwards, et cetera, to maintain compliance. Now, with more modern core banking solutions, or depending on how you set up your APIs for your institution, for example, they could, let's say somebody was creating a digital wallet and their funds being stored. Guess what? That has to pass through all of your AML to onboard that customer to begin with. So you'd have approved from get-go based on the same KYC information. You'd see, because it's running on your tech stack, you'd see the transactions in and out. And so you'll have a lot more transparency. So it reduces the risk overall. So you're not just relying on them to, as I said, settlements only using one of your accounts. You are actually their financial partner to support a wide range of transactions, and then you also benefit from the transparency of that. Technically, it's still not your customer, but you're enabling that experience for them using your existing regulatory approvals and infrastructure. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Next question here.
Yes, just to add to some other points that we mentioned. I mean, we have all these good ideas about how we want the private to become a financial owner. However, I look at it from two phases. It's multifaceted. We just take the first phase in terms of, for one, the more developed countries, we have to ponder to what they say a lot of the times. They push false paradigms on us. When I go to the US, it takes me like 10 minutes to open a bank account.
Right.
But at the same time, in order to keep off your grails and all these things, all local regulators. In Jamaica, you need 4 references.
Right.
the dentist, the doctor's friend, to sign a letter for you, and it takes around 3 working days to open an account and begin to fund an account.
Right.
Already the customer is getting frustrated. That's why we have so many banks and one-bank persons. Now we have to engage the regulators, and by the time we engage the regulators, we want to roll out innovation or adopt. Time has passed, new technology comes out.
Right.
You have overseas persons who are less restricted than you, and they come in and they will dominate the market. So
Right.
you need to look at it from that perspective.
So, I agree with you, but I also think that we need to internally look at changing that experience. So, for example, if you were to open a brand new PayPal account, you can open it. I don't even think you need ID, but your transaction limit is very, very low. You had mentioned Jamaica as one of the markets. Jamaica now has tiered KYC in place where you can actually open a bank account with one piece of ID, again, with tiered limits. So don't tell the customer, hey, no, I can't open your account. Open them on the most basic level. Let them know, hey, you know, if you want to unlock past $50,000 worth of balance, give us another form of ID. If you want to be able to do another transaction, give us another form of ID. And so therefore, it's no longer, oh, I need to bring everything at once. You get the instant gratification of, oh, I now have a bank account, and then you get a prompt a little later on, hey, upload a proof of address so that way we know where to send your statement. Right? You don't even have to frame it as KYC. It can be just something along that makes somebody feel that, hey, we're making constant progress on our financial journey on a daily basis. And so that is an approach you could take locally.
Thanks, Dmitri. I want to add to that. I like that, the fact that you brought that up and the approach you take to it, right? Because the problem with that is not only in the financial system, but you see it all over, right? I'm an experienced traveler, and just going through airports and these things, and I always refer to it. You mentioned it because you touched on it on the part where you touched on the compliance hurdles. Compliance hurdles, that's exactly this.
Yep.
Right? But when you travel through the region, you see the same thing, and you know how I refer to it? We Caribbean or black people like to be holier than the Pope. Right? So, where in the States nowadays, you just walk through, you have your shoes on and everything, your bag, you put in a scanner, you go. Here, they want us to undress and do this and we like it. And the thing is, the approach that Dmitri did, you see, it's the same thing you're doing, but with a different approach in terms of tearing up the compliance, right? But we in the Caribbean have this thing we like to tell, especially when it comes to these type of roles that we have, a role that we determine, right? What happens. And then we like to tell people what to do. So no, you want this account, you need to bring me this, and this.
Right.
Right? You want to be on that flight, you need to address, you need to do this, you need to do that. Huh? Put it, so there are different, I have different experiences and different levels where this same thing, it's now an example here based on opening accounts and financial, but there are different levels, and that's just a culture that we have that we need to get rid of.
I just want to add on to that, especially for the Gen Z and Gen Alpha guys. TikTok has a fantastic workflow for validating people, and they're used to it. And TikTok, I don't know how many of you have opened a TikTok account, but when you first open an account, very little information, and literally every single week, it will prompt you for something else, or it will say, oh, we want to change these privacy settings. Are you okay, yes or no? Because they're aware that people are very cautious about using it, etc. But as you unlock more familiarity through consistent usage, and it says, oh, we're going to turn this on for you. If you don't want it on, press this no. Or so therefore, it just expands the relationship over time, and that's how they drive their growth as well. Which really and truly, the way social media companies grow is we can actually use a lot of their growth hacks for us as financial institutions as well. And we actually get a much higher lifetime customer value. Because if that one customer then, whether it be on the low end opens a credit card or a deposit account, or on the high end takes out a mortgage, the amount you generate per customer is way more money than any of those social media guys ever will. So I think that it's time that we invest to capitalize on that and understand our actual customer acquisition cost and invest in that customer acquisition process to increase our share of wallet per customer.
Thanks for that. Any more questions before we
Oh, no.
move on? Yeah, all right.
And again, guys, we can do the partner sessions later.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Monica from Eastern Korea and Maldives and Antigua. For you, one of the points that you brought across was to create opportunity and wealth building.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, I was interested in hearing about the lending opportunities that you guys would create, as you spoke about. Just because in the smaller islands, I think we are lending limited.
Yeah.
That's okay to say. For example, if you have a 30-year mortgage and you want to save it in invest in property,
Right.
maybe to earn income, maybe Airbnb, what are some of the solutions you may offer for someone to get involved in that type of investment?
Okay, somewhat difficult question, but I'm going to put on my core banking hat and think of a product configuration point of view, right? So you as the institution who wants to offer these things, I personally, we have a feature called relationship-based pricing, which is grossly underutilized by our customers, and I don't know why they don't take it up. But how relationship-based pricing works is, say, for example, your parent or your sibling has a mortgage with the institution already and you want to take on a new mortgage. Because of that relationship, you can offer them a preferential rate based on that. And that way, I mean, really and truly, as again, the generational wealth, you encourage families to all work with the institution over time, which many of our institutions are 100 years plus. We understand the benefit of that, right? But then moving on from that, I mean, in future, like, I'm not saying even in future, right now in your credit decisioning model, you could incorporate other data sources. So you mentioned Airbnb. If somebody already has Airbnb income, there's no need really for them to provide a statement. You can do an Airbnb integration and track their Airbnb income from their account back into your customer profile to know that, oh, they're actually generating this amount of money, I can lend them more, or I should offer them another mortgage, or I should increase or reduce their rate, or even offer them, say, hey, increase the rate on this for the next year and you'll be able to afford a second investment property in a couple of years, right? Through the API integration. And there are a bunch of other things that we can do now with data. The IBM guys spoke about Watson earlier, having a backend like that for modeling, not to say individual for the customer, but overall to import some of that data and create new products based on those models would be very useful, and it is possible now, as well as just really configuring the, what you had shared earlier on the irregular payments. That's fantastic stuff. Like how do we use products like those to meet people where they are so that way they can better access the products and services?
So I think there was one more question here, and then we... So Super, you have a question still, or you?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Sure. Okay. Anybody else? Any questions or comments, remarks for Dmitri? No?
No.
Yes, Dmitri, thanks for that insightful presentation taken from a different approach.
No problem. Thanks, guys.
Definitely one of the key takeaways, and we see it at different levels, different platforms like these, conferences coming together, is indeed what we do in terms of innovation. It was some